The call to the member for Holt.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. How is the Albanese Labor government helping ease the cost of living pressures and get wages moving again, and what other approaches have been rejected?
The call to the Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, the member for Holt is a champion for working people in her community and her country, and she would have watched with great interest today the release of the new wages data, which came out just a short time ago. What we saw earlier this morning was that the wage price index rose 1.3% in the September quarter this year and 4.0% for the year. This means, as the Prime Minister said, that real wages have grown now for the second consecutive quarter. This was the highest quarterly growth in the 26-year history of the wage price index, and it is the fastest annual growth in wages since 2009, Mr Speaker. Now, the Shadow Treasurer keeps interjecting, Mr Speaker. I mean, he doesn't get a question, and so he hopes that if he chirps enough that will be a substitute for a question. But I heard him earlier today, before question time. He's out there in the courtyard and he's talking about real wages, Mr Speaker. And it hasn't dawned on the Shadow Treasurer that real wages were falling 3.4% in the last quarter that they were in office. 3.4%, Mr Speaker. Now, they are now 1.4% in annual terms, which is still too much of a real wages fall, but we are closing the gap that we inherited from those opposite. 3.4% real wages fall under them, 1.4% in the numbers today, but the second consecutive quarter of real wages growth on our watch, Mr Speaker. Now, this isn't accidental. This isn't accidental. Wages growth is a deliberate design feature of our economic plan. That's why we supported an increase to the minimum wage. It's why we supported decent pay for aged care workers, and that was recognised in today's release, Mr Speaker. Now, those opposite spent the best part of a decade pursuing a policy of deliberate wage stagnation and deliberate wage suppression.
The Treasurer will resume his seat. Order. The Treasurer will just pause. I want to hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Well, Mr Speaker, on relevance, the question was...
the Treasurer will not interject while I'm hearing the point of order.
What is the government doing to get wages moving, and what approaches have been rejected? That is not licence to spend the entirety of his answer going over...
The Treasurer will have not called the Treasurer. Resume your seat. The Manager of Opposition is entitled to raise his point of order in silence.
The Treasurer is a repeat offender, and he should be directed to speak about the policies of his own government.
The member for Wright will not use that language. The Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, the point of order raised by the Manager of Opposition Business actually explained why this answer is in order. When the question refers to what policies have been rejected, then to refer to the opposition's policies to keep wages down, to keep them low, as something that we have rejected is exactly what the question is asking the minister to respond to.
I want to deal with this. The Treasurer has been going for 2 minutes. Part of the question did say what measures have been rejected. I'm going to ask him to return to the question to make sure he's talking about policy, not personality. I give him the call.
Thank you, Speaker. We reject the deliberate wage stagnation and wage suppression which defined a decade of economic mismanagement from those opposite. And that's because on this side of the House, we see decent wages growth as part of the solution to cost of living pressures, not part of the problem, which is what those opposite think. Now, Mr Speaker, the sorts of rubbish that we hear about wages from those opposite, and particularly the Shadow Treasurer, might get him a polite little golfer's clap over a sherry at that Cookers convention he went to in London, or at the H.R. Nichols Society on Friday. He's at the H.R. Nichols Society on Friday, Mr Speaker, but we take a completely different approach to those opposite. Getting wages moving again is a key part of our economic plan, and we are pleased to see today, for the second consecutive quarter, that real wages are growing again.